Admiral Zarathul of the Hegemonic Council had seen 300 cycles of warfare across 17 star systems. Her scarred carapace bore witness to battles that had toppled civilizations and reshaped galactic borders. Yet as she stared at the tactical display aboard her flagship, the Eternal Dominion, something cold settled in her thoracic cavity, something she had never experienced before. Fear. "Confirm those readings," she clicked to her navigation officer, her mandibles trembling. "Slightly." "Confirmed, Admiral. 67 vessels emerging from hyperspace. Configuration: unknown. Energy signatures." The young Kethron's voice faltered. "Admiral, these readings are impossible." The Galactic Council had been monitoring the human homeworld of Terra for 2 standard years since first contact. The bipedal mammals had proven annoyingly persistent, refusing the standard terms of vassalage that every other species had accepted. Their technology was primitive: fusion drives, kinetic weapons, basic shield generators that couldn't even deflect a proper plasma lance. The Council had been patient, allowing humanity time to accept the inevitable. Today, that patience had run out, or so they had thought. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out on a dozen different flagships. The Vorthan Empire's Dreadnought Knight's Edge detected the same impossible signatures. The Crystalline Collective's hive ships registered energy patterns that defied their understanding of physics. The machine consciousness known as the Binary Dominion experienced what could only be described as computational anxiety, as their sensors fed them data that contradicted fundamental laws. Admiral Zarathul had expected to face perhaps 30 human vessels, crude constructions of steel and ceramic, armed with chemical explosives and primitive railguns. Instead, her instruments showed ships that seemed to bend space around themselves, vessels that appeared to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. "Open a channel to the human fleet," she commanded, her confidence wavering for the first time in decades. The response came not from a bridge, but from a figure standing in what appeared to be empty space. Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Force materialized as a hologram, but something was wrong with the projection. She seemed too real, too present, as if the technology creating her image operated on principles the Council had never encountered. "Admiral Zarathul," Chen said, her voice carrying clearly despite the impossibility of sound transmission through vacuum. "I believe you came here to demand our surrender." "Human Chen," Zarathul replied, fighting to keep her voice steady. "The Council has been generous. We offered your species a place within the greater galactic community. Your refusal has forced this intervention." Chen smiled, and somehow that expression was more terrifying than any weapon discharge. "We appreciate the offer. However, we've been busy these past 2 years. Would you like to see what humanity does when given time to prepare?" Without waiting for an answer, Chen gestured to something off-screen. The space around the human fleet began to shimmer. On the Eternal Dominion's bridge, alarms began screaming. "Admiral," the sensor officer shouted, "they're deploying something. Energy buildup is off the scale." What emerged from the human ships defied categorization. They weren't weapons in any conventional sense. They were manifestations of humanity's greatest strength, their ability to imagine the impossible and then make it real. The first prototype was designated Prometheus. It didn't fire projectiles or energy beams. Instead, it reached across space with tendrils of controlled gravity, gently taking hold of 3 hegemonic destroyers and folding them into origami sculptures of compressed matter. The crews weren't harmed. They were simply relocated to small pocket dimensions where they could contemplate their career choices. The second prototype, Pandora, opened a series of microscopic wormholes throughout the enemy formation. Nothing emerged from these apertures, but every ship found its weapon systems replaced with bouquets of earth flowers. Daisies bloomed from plasma cannon muzzles. Roses wound around missile tubes. The message was clear. Humanity could have done anything to those weapons. The third prototype didn't even have a name. Its human operators simply called it the question mark. It broadcast a signal that temporarily rewired the neural pathways of every non-human in the vicinity, forcing them to experience the universe through human perception for exactly 3.7 seconds. The psychological impact was devastating. For a brief moment, every alien consciousness experienced humanity's unique combination of boundless curiosity, stubborn determination, and catastrophic creativity. Admiral Zarathul found herself laughing, an emotion her species didn't typically express, as she suddenly understood why humans told jokes, why they created art, why they fell in love with ideas that made no logical sense. The experience faded, but the memory remained, leaving her fundamentally changed. "What?" she whispered. "What are you?" Admiral Chen's image flickered, and for a moment, she seemed to exist in multiple realities simultaneously. We're the species that looked at the laws of physics and asked, but what if they were more like guidelines? We're the civilization that discovered faster than light travel by convincing the universe it was mathematically rude to keep us stuck in one star system. Across the galaxy, the effect was instantaneous. Every major power monitoring the engagement went silent. Not because their communications were jammed, but because they were trying to process what they had witnessed. The Vorthon Empire immediately began drafting trade agreements. The Crystalline Collective started composing what could only be described as a love song in harmonized frequencies. The Binary Dominion began calculating the most aesthetically pleasing way to surrender. "The thing is," Chen continued, "we really do want to be part of the galactic community. But as partners, not subjects. These prototypes, they're our way of introducing ourselves properly." Admiral Zarathul looked at her tactical display, where her fleet's weapons were now producing a light show that somehow perfectly synchronized with an ancient Kethran lullaby. "And if we refuse?" Chen's smile widened. "Well, these are just the prototypes. Would you like to see what we built for special occasions?" The silence that followed wasn't just from Admiral Zarathul's fleet. It echoed across the galaxy as every empire, every collective, every artificial intelligence came to the same conclusion. Humanity hadn't just joined the galactic community. They had redefined what membership meant. In the end, the formal peace negotiations lasted exactly 17 minutes. Not because the terms were simple, but because every delegation was too fascinated by humanity's casual violation of causality to bother with traditional diplomacy. The galaxy had been silent that day, but the conversations that followed would last for millennia.